for some football season because guess what, y'all? It is here.
Yep.
Kinda. Yeah.
I don't like this lack of enthusiasm.
No, I'm excited.
It's baseball season for me.
Oh, stop.
boy. Here we
Please.
go.
I know it's July, but football season is here. Lions training camp just started.
There's nothing more exciting than when you hit that part of the summer where it's just baseball, but then you get a little taste of football season creeps in, and you say, "Oh, wait," and then you just feel just a little extra juice
Yeah.
inside.
I mean,
you know?
I was walking the dog the other day, and it felt like fall. I was like, wait, is it September? Is it here?
Nothing hits like a fourth stringer who's going to be cut in a couple weeks at practice.
Stop. Stop. But I mean, it still has the Lions season still has that excitement, at least for me, going into it, because this team, there were a lot of changes in the offseason. They're dealing with injuries. We'll get into that. But still, the building blocks are still in place.
Yeah, no, I'm
The
excited.
main players
Yeah.
are still in place off of the field and on the field.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the team more or less looks the same on the field in terms of like the skill players and the skeleton of the team. So yeah, it's an exciting time that it's the first step towards the season.
It's there's just something beautiful though about training camp, right? It's like you wake up and you just know there's football going on nearby.
Are
And
you ready
even
to
if
write
there are
like
a bunch of
like a book
rookies
about it?
and
Yeah.
fourth stringers, like you said, like
Derek is dipping
I
a
don't
toe in the
care,
water. I'm
man.
just cannonballing right in.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. There's
He's describing spring training. That was back in March.
it's spring training for football. It's summer
It is.
training.
Yeah.
It's
It
the
is.
same thing.
But yes, the Lions starting their fall camp, their training camp. I say fall camp, it is July, but still, nonetheless, still the same thing. But I think we have a new motto for what this season in 2025 will be for the Lions, and that is thanks to the one, David Montgomery. Take a listen.
It's cool to be close at first, but you don't want to get comfortable with being close all the time. That's not what you want to be known for, especially when you know you got the guys that you got on this team, and you want to finish it. So that's the year. This is the year for us. The year of the reckoning, and the year that we choose that we need to finish.
Look, this is one of the things I talked about in the meeting the other day, and it's just, I think if we keep that type of mindset, man, we're after it. It's another year, and we're out to finish what we started. We're going to close out some of these debts. That's got to be the attitude. That's the mindset across the board. Every day in practice, no matter who we play, no matter what people think, man, we're going. And I just think it's a mindset. That's all.
We are 2 days into training camp, and those probably are the two best sound bites you will hear out of Allen Park for the next 2, maybe 3 months until we get to the beginning of the season.
When I turned on, something that whatever this morning I heard Dan Campbell say, we're going to close out some debts. Man, I was ready to flip the table over. I was like, let's go, man. I have debts with the other teams. I'm not even involved. Let's close them out.
Man, that closing
Year
out
of reckoning.
debts line was so good.
That's
man.
just a classic Dan Campbell thing to say.
Yeah, I'd hate to be a commander on this day. But no, yeah, the year of reckoning, I agree with you. That could end up being sort of like the rallying
That's
cry
the
for the
T-shirt,
team, right? Yeah.
How many T-shirts are we going to see at Ford Field that have "Year of the Reckoning"
So
on it?
many, yeah.
That's just Dan Campbell's saying these things in that team meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And they're already sticking. They've been together for a day, and David Montgomery is already out there saying the line that he's probably hearing in that team meeting, and Dan's inserting a lot of cursing in between those probably
As we
in
saw
real
in
life,
quarterback,
as we saw
yeah.
in quarterback, but that message is clearly already connecting, and so that's just. Let's go, man. It's time.
I mean, another thing that has been said a lot for both offensive line and defensive line is the word standard. Like, the standard is the standard. Taylor Decker said that earlier today when he was asked about the offensive line. We'll get into that. But David Montgomery calling this the year of the reckoning. That's what they're saying inside. Externally, from a fan's perspective, from someone in Detroit's perspective, do you think that this year, because David Montgomery said it, this year is the year for this team if they are going to do it? I mean, do you carry that same sentiment?
Yeah, I think the more I think about this offseason, the more I feel like this is a year of reckoning, or at least a fork in the road year, because the last couple of years, I think we've sort of looked at the Lions as this team that was entering a long window of contention. But how often do those windows actually stay open in the NFL? Unless you have like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen, like an elite quarterback, those windows don't tend to stay open more than a few years. So if you go through this year and the Lions don't get it done, you start to look at the window as you're probably on the back half. So, yeah, I really do think that this is a super pivotal year for the Lions.
And you use the terminology right there, the window. Terrion Arnold addressed that earlier. I asked him, do you kind of have the same feeling as David Montgomery? He goes, we know that the window is now. We know that is a fact, that if we want to go do something, we have to do it right now. Do you think that there is such a thing as a window, Ken, with this team?
For sure. And, you know, as you look like the last 3 seasons for the Lions, you could look at every season and see what they learned, what they're going to be taking into that next. There's nothing left to learn for the Lions.
No.
They've won playoff games. They've won divisions. They've got the #1 seed. They've set all the franchise records for wins and all. I mean, there's really nothing left to do but win the Super Bowl. So it's right in front of them. They know how to get it done. They know how to win games. They just need to get it done.
And I think that, and last year, this time, I still remember Amon-Ra St. Brown at the podium saying the word Super Bowl. Yep. So many guys were walking up to the microphone and saying, Super Bowl, that's what we want, because they got so close in the NFC Championship game. This year, aside from what David Montgomery said, there was really nothing said about that, because that is the expectation for this team. It is assumed.
You don't even need to say it.
Yeah, we've done it. We've done it all. We just need to get there. That's where they are.
It's as simple as that. It really is. Yeah.
It really is. I mean, so this year, Super Bowl or bust, putting that type of label on it?
I think you have to.
At least getting there, yes. At least getting to the franchise's first ever Super Bowl, yes, because that is sort of the last thing between what they've done and the ultimate goal is getting to the Super Bowl. So, you know, we could have a conversation if they did get to the Super Bowl and lose, whether it was a successful season, but at least then you would, you know, sort of cross another goal line.
I will say with the window, though, you know, I think the Lions are, and just like every other team, but they're building a foundation to keep that window not wide open forever, but at least open. Right?
At least
they
as
want to keep
open
it
as
open.
long as it can be.
Exactly. Sure. I don't think they're looking at it as okay, we've got 2 or 3 years trying to win a Super Bowl, then we're going to restart this thing. No, they want to keep that window open for a very long period of time.
And Brad Holmes said as much earlier this year. There is no window to him. It's all about just reloading and finding the right guys to come in.
Yeah.
They did have to reload in the offseason, though, and now we are finding out why. Yes, replacements needed on the offensive line, but on defensive line, too, with so many injuries already adding up, and we haven't even gotten to the first preseason game. More on that coming up on DSP. We are here on DSP, Lions training camp, still rolling along, just wrapped up day 2. But for all of the good, positive things that are going into the season for this team, many changes, new coordinators, new starters on the offensive line, and this team already dealing with injuries. Ennis Rakestraw left practice on Sunday with a chest injury, but Dan Campbell said that he should be okay. But the big one, Levi Onwuzurike, who just signed a contract extension in the offseason, is out for the year with an ACL. That's on top of Aleem McNeil also recovering from an ACL injury. First of all, it's terrible news for him because he's dealt with so many injuries in his career. Looked like he was turning a corner last year. But where does this put the Lions' defensive line, a spot that was pretty injured last year, pretty much throughout the entire season?
Yeah, for me, this is more of a depth injury than wow, you can't afford to lose this guy injury. It's something that, if they were to lose another defensive tackle, I really think they would feel this more. But, yeah, I mean, the Lions, it seems like as much as they try to bulk up the D-line, they just keep losing guys. And how many more can you take? You're getting Aiden Hutchinson back, and you're starting to wonder, are we ever actually going to get a chance to see this entire unit all at full health?
I agree. I mean, it's definitely a hit to the depth of the defensive line. It's not not really a starter, but could be a starter. But
at this point,
he's
he was.
Good.
But at this point, with Aleem dealing with an injury, he was in line to be a starter
for sure.
So that's it. To me, that's where the impact is going to be felt, which makes it much more than just a quote unquote depth piece for me. Because if we're looking at Aleem McNeil, if we're going by averages, usually it takes a year-ish to recover from an ACL. He hurt it late in the season last year. Maybe November he's back. Maybe, hypothetically.
Yeah,
you were going to be relying on Levi a
him?
lot.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, the defensive line is lives and dies with Aiden Hutchinson to me. So, you know, the pieces around him, they're going to change a lot. But if Hutch is Hutch, they're going to be, you know, a force to be reckoned with.
I don't think that Levi Onwuzurike on his own is like a difference-making player. I think he's a fine fill-in when you're down Aleem McNeil, but if the Lions, if all things go the way they're hoping, get to the playoffs and they've got everybody else healthy, I don't think Levi Onwuzurike is like a massive loss. Where it becomes a massive loss is if Aleem McNeil doesn't fully recover, or if he comes back and tweaks something, or if they lose someone somewhere else.
Yeah.
Then you're starting to pull guys off the street again.
If they lose DJ Reader, that is going to be the big one. I asked Dan Campbell earlier today about it, and he said, thank God we have DJ Reader because he gives you a lot of comfort because he can play so many different positions on that defensive line, in those interior spots.
And luckily, they spent their first-round pick on the interior defensive line.
That's another guy that he can mentor. So that's going to be your 1-2 punch at defensive tackle right now. And then they got Roy Lopez, a great rotational depth piece. So, I mean, for those top 3 spots right now, I think they'll be okay. But beyond that, that only increases the need to stay healthy.
Yeah, for sure. You've already used one of your, injury mulligans, and you're 2 days into camp is the way that I look at it. So it's just like it's a bad way to get started.
I feel like that's the bigger hit to me. Is just like starting camp with a defensive injury, a year ender. It was just coming off of last year. You just don't want to see that.
That being said, we've addressed the defensive line, but looking at the offensive line in camp right now, you have Graham Glasgow on the right side. You have Tate Ratledge taking center snaps, and then you have Christian Mahogany at left guard. That's how it's been so far early on in camp. Which gives you more concern at this point? And I feel like we use the word concern a lot talking about the Lions lately, but which gives you more concern, the offensive line or the defensive line early in camp at this point?
The offensive line for me, for sure.
Still.
Yeah. Just because the Lions I think the reason they've been able to shoulder all of these blows throughout the last couple of years injury-wise is because they've had that offensive line. And it's a unit that doesn't really slump. It's a unit that you can rely on. And really probably the reason that Jared Goff has looked like, a top-tier quarterback the last couple of years. So you're just naming all those guys, and I'm just shaking my head like I don't know at all what the Lions are going to get from them, and I don't know what they're going to get from Taylor Decker. So I'm just like, that whole unit is the X factor for sure for me.
I think finding out how big of a role Frank Ragnow played on this offense is going to be very telling, especially early on in the season. That Goff Ragnow battery sort of thing, baseball reference there
Good
for
stuff.
you, was so integral to every part. I mean, like reading the coverages, changing plays, like all that stuff, that relationship that you have, that consistency, they're going to have to rebuild that. I mean, it's a big piece of that offensive line.
I mentioned earlier today, just standing on the sidelines, like that's going to be big because Tate Ratledge, if that's where he stays, unless they rotate Graham Glasgow in, he's going to be Jared Goff's second set of eyes the moment that huddle breaks.
Yep.
Like you have to turn your back and you start diagnosing immediately. That's a lot for somebody to take, let alone somebody who didn't play center in college.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously it's within the realm of possibilities that this is a very good offensive line, right? Just 2 years ago, Decker and Glasgow were both very good players.
Yeah.
And, Ratledge is a high pick. Mahogany has shown some good things when he's been thrown in there. So I'm just skeptical of all 4 of, or even more, half of those things all, going out to their best case scenario. So that's what gives me pause.
And Decker said as much today. He said, somebody was asked him, like, how do you go about being a leader for this offensive line? Because he's not at practice yet. Should be after the Hall of Fame game is what Dan Campbell said. But he was asked, like, how do you go about leading this group? And he said, well, the standard is the standard. And that's what we have to live up to. We have created that expectation here. So no matter who's in there, that's what we have to live up to continue being one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. So it's no secret. They're understanding that there are questions, and they have to prove people wrong.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
I think if you told me that this is going to be a top 15 offensive line in the NFL, I would sign up for that. Whereas in the past few years, it's been probably one, two, 3. Yeah. So right now, it's just be above average. I think that's where you got to start.
No, man. Don't say that.
I feel like Derek always says something, and the kid is like,
no.
no.
Man. Come on.
I'm just helping you out, man. I'm getting you ready.
They have to figure out how to keep that running game elite, because that is everything.
Yeah.
To that team, to that offense, and to Jared Goff specifically. That's what I'm most worried about with the offensive line. Can they run the ball like they did last year? I don't know.
I would be stunned if they can,
Yeah.
as well as last year. Yes,
You're right.
without Frank Ragnow.
You're right.
A lot of outside zone. There you go. Seriously, like,
you're right.
like
Yes.
Penei
Well, you already
Sewell,
heard
yeah.
they're lining Jahmyr Gibbs up in the slot a lot in early practice or whatever. So we'll see what they got up their sleeves.
Yeah.
We shall see what John Morton has up his sleeve as he takes over as the offensive coordinator. Still more to come on DSP. Derek, your time to shine. The Tigers returning from the All-Star break. However, it looked great. It looked great Sunday night. But before that,
Not so good.
not so good. Still, this team, one of the best in baseball. We'll dive into that when we return on DSP. Despite kind of sputtering out of the All-Star break, the Detroit Tigers got to 60 wins.
That's right. Yep.
First team to 60.
Yep.
Another check mark on the list for the year.
Yep, they've been leading like the 10 wins race pretty much every step of the way since 20. So
Yeah.
How can they lose 6 in a row and still be the first team to 60? That's honestly
Because
more
it's
embarrassing.
baseball, because they play a lot of games.
It's almost as if every team goes through a losing streak over the course of
What?
162. Yeah.
Nah, that's a preview.
Yeah.
A little foreshadowing.
Looking at this Tigers team, went into the break on a 4-game
Yep.
losing streak. Started out after the All-Star break with back-to-back losses against the Rangers. They won on a Tarek Skubal start on Sunday Night Baseball, but in the 3 games against the Rangers, they scored 3 runs.
Yeah. It was ugly. I mean,
Yeah.
going into the break, like you said, it was super ugly. The Mariners kind of beat up on the Tigers. They lost 4 games in a row in blowouts. And then you come out from the break, it wasn't the greatest all-star game for the Tigers.
No.
So you're like, make us feel good, And they dropped the first 2. They can't hit, especially with runners in scoring position. And then even the Sunday night win felt a little because Skubal was so good and they needed –
It's like, how are they going to squander this?
yeah, they needed that late rally to sort of
tried.
salvage one. Yeah, they really did. So we're not feeling good right now in terms of how it's going. But the Tigers, if I'm going to have a losing streak, I'd like to have a losing streak where I end it up 20 games above 500 and
Sure.
in first place, by 11 games. So the Tigers are by no means panicking. And but this does sort of bring the trade deadline into perspective and highlight some of the things that Scott Harris really needs to address.
So then what do you address then? The bullpen?
We were talking
Do you
about
address,
bullpen
do you
last
address
week.
the lack of offense? I mean, they're not like urgent, glaring problems, right? They're still a very, very good team and all that, but you probably can't go get 2 difference makers at the trade deadline. You're more so looking at like, what if you had to address one area?
Yeah, you probably can't. They won't realistically because they're not going to trade like Kevin McGonigal
Right.
or something. If I could only add one player, I would add a high leverage reliever with swing and miss, and that is different than what I said 2 weeks ago on the show when I was looking at a starting pitcher, and that's because from then to now, Tommy Kahnle has completely fallen apart, and I'm not willing to risk the fate of this entire season on him turning it around. Look. Tommy Kahnle was amazing coming into July. He was carrying a 1.77 ERA. Like this had been one of our lockdown guys. But July has just been so disastrous that you almost wonder what's going on. It leads you to be like, is this just a really, really epic slump, or are we going to find out, that he's not doing well, dead arm or something like that? And that's why I think the Tigers need to go out and add a reliever, which I hate adding relievers at the deadline because everybody needs one and the market is always extremely expensive.
But like we were talking last week, the Tigers do have capital, depending on what they want to give up. I mean, they have blue chip prospects, but you don't really want to touch those. But they have some depth in the organization too that they could. sit
They have a
somewhere.
ton of depth. I mean, they have some of the best teams at every level of the organization, and that's because they've stocked those rosters with good players.
Yeah.
And, they just had another draft, and you feel confident that those guys are probably going to contribute in some form. But, the relief pitcher thing, it seems like they don't usually go for like the top 100 guys, which is fine. If the Tigers had to move on from like a Hao-Yu Lee, I think that's just sort of the cost of business. But, I'm not parting with those potential difference-making guys because
Like bats
Even
moving
if-
into the future, like
yeah.
a Max Clark, Kevin McGonigal type
Exactly.
player.
Even if you get the best reliever on the market, even if the Tigers went and made a huge splash and got Yohan Duran from the Twins, what if he pitches 2 innings in a playoff series? That's realistic, that he only pitches 2 innings in a playoff series. You traded 6 years of, Briseño for 2 innings of playoff Yohan Duran. Like, was that worth it? It's very difficult.
Depends on
for me.
how far into the playoffs
Did you
we're
win the
talking.
World Series?
If
That's
you
what
win
I'm
the
like.
World
That's
Series, very
the
clearly, yeah.
counterpoint to it. Where in the postseason are you pitching?
For sure. That's
But
why
that's
it's a
the
difficult
risk.
job. That's why
That's-
Scott
that's
Harris
the
is,
risk.
Yeah, that's why he's getting paid to lead this organization. And it's a very difficult spot, and we haven't seen him in this spot before, and we're about to learn a lot about him in the next 10 days.
It felt like they were in the exact opposite spot last season and still made the postseason and made a run.
I feel like they should go get a bat. I just feel like that the offense has been on a downturn for a little while. You got, like Parker Meadows is really struggling. You got Matt Vierling still coming off injury. He had a big hit last night. But I just feel like once you get into the playoffs, it's really tight games.
Yeah.
You need that run. You need that extra run like somewhere. So where do they find that offense? right now?
My question to that is how much of a difference maker can Kerry Carpenter be whenever he does come back?
Huge
from
difference
injury?
maker. He's exactly what they need right now,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't hurt to have another one. Ken was just talking about the playoffs. How do you stop offensive struggles in the playoffs? You hit a home run. You hit a 3-run homer.
And Kerry did it.
That's what Kerry did
Yeah.
in the playoffs last year. That's exactly what Eugenio Suarez can do, and he's been doing it a lot. Like it doesn't have to be Eugenio Suarez exactly, but it needs to be a player like him. If the Tigers are going to add a bat, it needs to be a bat with thump, a guy who's going to hit 12 home runs from now to the end of the season and also be a threat in the middle of the lineup in the playoffs, because they got a bunch of guys who can get on base, who can hit a double. But in the playoffs, sometimes you just need that one swing.
Solo shot.
That's exactly how
1-0 win.
That's exactly how Cleveland beat the Tigers last year.
With Tarek Skubal pitching.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you
Boom.
need.
That's all you
There's
need.
the recipe.
Yeah, Game 4 last year of the ALDS, it was David Fry for Cleveland hitting a timely home run. It was like his only hit the whole series, but it was the hit that mattered, and that's why Cleveland advanced.
Speaking of series, they're in Pittsburgh coming up to start off the week, but at the tail end of this week, the team who is right behind them in the American League, the Toronto Blue Jays. Not to say it's make or break, but this could be another one of those quote unquote telling series for the Tigers. Now that they're going to be feeling some heat from a team that's going to be right behind them.
At the very least, it's fun, right? I mean, like the other best
It
team in
creates
the
that
AL, right.
postseason type of pressure.
Yeah.
Whenever you still got a couple of months until you get there.
Those series have brought out the best in the Tigers
Yeah.
this season. And I mean, I think about the Cubs.
The Yankee series, the Cubs series.
The Cubs series was like the highlight series to me. Whenever the Tigers are on Sunday Night Baseball, Tarek is showing out. Like these guys have been rising to these big stages. So they need to get through Pittsburgh. Of course, the Tigers draw Paul Skeens. But the Tigers need to win 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh, and then they can come home and we can, that's a chance to sort of launch back into another good stretch.
You brought up the name. Should they trade for Paul Skeens?
Yes. Yes, they should.
What are we giving up for Paul Skeens then? Come on.
The farm, yes.
The farm?
My kingdom for Paul Skeens. I mean, yeah. Sure. Trade
Sure.
for Paul Skeens. Take what you want. Obviously, that would change my feelings entirely on who's available.
You heard it here for the millionth time
Yeah.
with the Twitter sphere.
Can we also just say, pay Tariq Skubal?
Yeah.
Pay the man.
Pay him?
Pay the man. He is a true embodiment of Detroit sports right now. He is putting this team on his back.
Yeah.
He could have finished that inning last night. How the competitive spirit he has in that moment to not want to come out, like that's what I want from leaders of teams.
Mm-hmm.
Pay Skubal.
Yeah.
Keep him in Detroit. Pay him.
How long are we talking though?
I don't give him a 10-year contract. I don't care.
That's what it would take, probably. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. It's, I would like to pay Tarek Skubal, but my advice to everyone is to enjoy the next 40 starts that you see from him.
Are you the quote unquote financial advisor in this situation?
No, I've watched how the team operates, and there is an argument to not paying Tarek Skubal $400-500 million. That I personally think that he's probably worth keeping around, but I don't know if the numbers were getting into that region. It's not an easy call.
No.
So I don't think the Tigers will be the ones to do it. So I'm enjoying Skubal.
We still have time. We still
every
have
fifth
time.
day while I can. Yes.
And that's what we do. That's what we will do. Tigers have Pittsburgh coming up and then the Blue Jays at the end of the week. But that does it for us on DSP. For Ken, for Derek, I'm Hobie. We will see y'all next time.